Hi, everybody. It's Alexandra, and Dotsie and I are going to start the show with our great guest today. But first, I wanted to play a question that we had from a listener. As I mentioned in the last episode, we have an opportunity for you all to ask questions of us or questions that we can ask our upcoming guests. If you go to switchforgood.org/podcast and scroll down the page, just wait for a sec for the page to load and scroll down about a third of the page. You'll see an orange button. It says start recording here, and you can record your question and maybe we'll play it on the podcast. So here is our first question of the day.
Hi, my name's Margaret, and I love your show so much. I've learned so much about plant-based eating and just about health in general. So thank you. And I have a question for you. I was wondering if you could tell me what your favorite quick and easy plant-based dish to cook is. Like for somebody who may or may not be me, who doesn't cook a lot, and just to make plant-based eating, well, the truth is eating easier, because I think even if I wasn't vegan, which I am, it would be hard for me to cook. So yeah, would love to have a quick and easy recipe. Thank you so much. Love what you do. Please keep up the great work, both of you. Bye.
Thank you so much for that question, Margaret. Well, I don't cook. Does blending count as cooking? Because I have a great recipe that's really easy that I eat every single morning, and I will tell you what it is right now. So take 5 ice cubes, a third of a frozen banana, 1 ounce of tofu or 1 ounce of avocado, depending, and 1 scoop of your favorite. I use chocolate Vega Sport protein powder, but of your favorite protein powder, and add a 1/4 cup water and blend it. Blend. Kind of need to tamp it down. I use it you really have to have a Vitamix for this. And it's a little bit, I actually triple the recipe so that I don't have to do it every day. And so it's a little bit of, takes a lot of, hand power, but that's okay because it's worth it. You then, when it's all smooth, you take this delicious, healthy chocolate pudding, and you pour it into a cup, a mug, or a glass. And then you add 1 tablespoon of chia seeds. And there you have it. You have Alexandra's delicious chia pudding. And it has, I don't know, not very many. It's like 250 calories. It's got, 30 grams of protein or something in it, some carbs from the bananas, some chia seeds give it fiber. It's so good and yum. I happen to have some right here. And because I made it this morning, and look, it's so delicious. Anyway, we're going to start our show now. Dotsie, while I'm eating this, will you introduce our guest, please?
For years, Kelly Gilbury ate the standard American diet, like so many of us did, and had the weight gain and clogged arteries to show for it. But a devastating personal loss and a pivotal doctor's visit changed his life forever. Seeking answers on how to get his health back, Kelly was so inspired by what he learned that he decided to kick his old habits to the curb and commit 100% to whole foods, plant-based lifestyle. A former instructor at the prestigious Naval Academy in Annapolis, Kelly is now a certified holistic nutritionist and a health coach. He's also an author whose book just came out last month on May 9th. His very first book, it's called Plants Saved My Life, How Going Vegan Transformed My Health. It provides insights into how we can transform our bodies, and it shares a powerful message of hope for all of you wanting to make a positive change in your health and, of course, in your lives. So welcome to the Switch for Good podcast, Kelly.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
We're very excited to have you, as we are with so many of our guests. But Kelly, 3 of our top 10 podcasts of all time, and we've been doing this for quite a while, are comeback stories like yours. People love to hear a great transformation story and kind of the pieces to putting that puzzle together that just totally changes and transforms lives. So with you, I want to start right at the devastating loss that catapulted you to the life you lead now. Take us there. Tell us what happened.
Well, it's awesome to say. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure being here. Yeah, so a few years ago in 2019, I got a telephone call from my brother saying that mom had went in for a routine heart procedure. Well, I don't know if you call it routine. She was calling in to put stents into her heart. And he told me that the procedure didn't go too well, and then she passed away on the table, but they revived her to bring her back to life. And when they brought her back to life, of course, they hooked her up to 3 different life support machines. He was like, you got to get on a plane now. So I got on a plane, booked the flight, and the very next day got in the plane. And then of course, when I got there, I hooked her up to all the different machines and all the different life support machines. And then the very next day, she passed away. It was pretty tragic. So when I got back on the plane and came home and went to a doctor's visit, the doctors told me, hey, listen, like, you're in the worst shape of your life. You have pre-diabetes and you have heart disease, which is angina. And
so you decided to go to the doctor. You're like, oh, this could be genetic. I better go check myself out.
Well, no, I was just going for a routine
just
doctor's
typical,
visit.
like
just
you
once
would
a
in
year.
the Navy. Okay.
So once a year, once a year doctor's visit.
Well, I don't do it, so but I'm bad, so I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, so this doctor's visit. Yeah, you got pre-diabetes, you got heart disease, and you're obese. Right. Keep in mind, my mother just passed away from a heart attack. So when she passed away from a heart attack, she came to me actually a few months later, about 6 months later. She came to me in a dream and told me that I had the ability to be able to help other people heal themselves. Right.
Oh.
So I'm like, what does that mean? How do I know about healing people if I'm obese, I'm overweight, I have pre-diabetes, I have angina? Like, I don't know anything about healing anybody. All I know is, fast food, takeout, and, whatever's on the menu. So, but what happened was my uncle came to live with us. And then when he came to live with us, he was given 2 months to live. So he beat cancer before it went into remission. And then when he beat the cancer, it came back. So he was in remission for a couple of years. And when it came back stronger. And they gave him 2 months to live. He ended up living for 5 months because I started giving him plants. I didn't even know. I just started giving him like more fruits, more vegetables. Every time we take him back to the doctors was like, dude, what are you still doing here? Right? Because he was supposed to be gone. After like month 3, they were like, okay. At month 4, they're looking at their watch like, you're here double of what you're supposed to be. And then he ended up living for 5 months. So when he passed away, I instantly knew what that dream meant. So the dream from my mother, it meant that first I needed to go on the mission to first transform my own health. And then second, to go on the mission to be able to transform the health of everyone else, transform the lives of everyone else. So that is my mission on this planet. My mission is to touch every corner of this planet with this message to say, hey, listen, you don't have to lose your loved ones from the leading cause of death, which is the leading cause of death in America, not even just America, but across the planet is heart disease. Right. So, and then cancer is the second leading cause of death. So I went on a mad mission that's when One Determined Vegan was born.
So did you know when your mother was really sick and when you went to visit and you were with your family, did you look around and say, wow, we're all really unhealthy, walking time bombs like mom? And when you went to that doctor,
so when you look into the mirror and you're just like, oh, you're in denial, right? You're just like, oh yeah, I'm not. I'm just like everybody else. We've normalized being overweight and obese and having all these conditions. We've normalized it in America. I mean, it's like walking out of your house every day, like, oh, you got a disease, you got a disease, you got a disease. It's like, it's normal for us. So I didn't notice until I went and looked back at some old pictures, like, dude, you're up there. How I realized I was really out of shape was when I went to go teach a class. So I was an instructor for oil and gas. So oil and gas, I flew up to Canada. I had to grab my basketball pants because they were really, really stretchy. That was the only thing that would really hold my belly in. Like I couldn't fit my other clothes. I couldn't fit my jeans. Like my belt had that little loop on it where it was just like, okay, man, your stomach is hanging over too much, so your belt is gonna.
Okay, this is a little shocking for people because you were in the Navy for 12 years. So we're thinking like rippled abs. And then you went and worked in oil and gas after getting out of the Navy. So in that period of time, it was just, whatever you want to eat?
I'm on the road all the time. So I was in field service at the time. So field service, and then I'm flying around teaching all these classes, and you're just living on the road. So it's just whatever there is convenient. So fast food, McDonald's, everything, right? So you're not working out like that because you're literally going from one site to the next site, to the next site, to the next site. And you just, hey, grabbing and going. Like for your workout here and there, like I'd work out in a hotel room, once or twice a week, maybe.
Yeah,
if I felt like
right.
it. Right. Nothing consistent, but I was consistently eating terribly. I can tell you that much. So over the years, year after year after year, being on the road, it eventually caught up to me where now I'm looking in the mirror like, I go to the doctor. Yeah, you're obese. Yeah, you're pre-diabetic. Yeah, you have heart disease.
What kind of food did you grow up on, and what did you eat did you just continue that as an adult, or up until 2021 when you changed your diet, were you eating pretty much the same thing that got you obese?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Growing up, I ate the traditional Southern African American meals. We're talking about soul food, right? We're talking about ham hocks, a fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, neck bones, oxtails, right? Chitlins, right?
You're speaking my Southern language. Yep.
Dotsie's from Kentucky.
I grew up on that too.
Right. Yeah. So chitlins, yeah, even raccoons. You probably in my book, I talk about raccoons. I don't know if you caught that in my book, but yeah, I talk about a raccoon. So my father back in the day, he set a trap for some raccoons and killed the raccoons. And next thing you know, we're having a raccoon for dinner. But as I got older, once I joined the military and I got older and I came back to visit, he'd be like, "Hey son, go in there and look in the oven and grab you something out of the oven." I'd open up the oven and I just see the raccoons, in there, just like his whole head and everything. I'm like, dude, I'm not eating that. Not as an adult. And I know what it is now. I'm good. I'm not gonna eat the raccoon.
Well, what did it taste like?
Raccoon is very gamey. Has a very gamey, stringy texture.
Okay.
Right. And then back in the and even my grandmother, she used to cook possums back in the day. Like possum was extremely greasy. Right. Gophers, turtles, you name it. We ate it. All right. I never ate a skunk. But some family members ate squirrels. So it just,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Traditional Southern stuff. Whatever.
So in that year, 2021 was the year you decided you were going to go from the worst shape of your life to the best shape.
Right.
How did you decide how to do that? Because there's a lot of ways people, quote unquote, get into shape or get healthy. We don't always agree. There are carnivores who only eat meat and think that means they're getting healthy. And then there's the keto and the low fat and the,
paleo,
pescatarian and vegan. And so tell us what was your thought process about what getting healthy meant to you?
So the more research I did, I wanted to know, like, I really, when my mother passed away, like all I saw was red. Like all I saw was red and rage. I was literally putting things into Google, like, why do people die? Like, this is what I'm putting in a Google search.
Wow.
And the more and more research that I did, the more it kept getting pointed back to the food. It's the food. It's the food. But
that's a smart Google search instead of what kind of food is going to make me healthy? What should I eat to get lean? Right. What are people dying of and why? I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the more and more I kept getting pointed back to the food, everything I did, it's pointing back to the food. We all eat food. We're like, what is it about the food? The more research I did, the more it's like, it's the wrong fuel source. It's the wrong fuel source in the sense that human beings are designed to run. There's three, in my studies, I find out there's three special diets. There's herbivore, omnivore, and carnivore, right? And the more research I did, I started looking at our anatomy, and our anatomy kept saying everything about our anatomy says that we're designed to eat plants. So I tried all of the ketos before. I tried keto. I tried Nutrisystems. I tried all of these different fad diets over the years. So I got to the point where I was just like, enough with the fad diets. Like, I'm going back in my mind, I'm going back to military. I'm going back to military style. Like, what works? What is it? What's the truth? Let's cut through the red tape. Let's cut the BS, and let's find out why my mother passed away. Let's find out what cancer is all about. Let's find out where cancer came from. Then I started watching all these documentaries, of course, What the Health and all these different things. And then boom, and then when it just clicked. So when it clicked, I was just like, you know what? So that was in December. And December is when it clicked. December of 2020 is when it clicked. So I said, all right, first of the year, January 1st, I'm going on a mad mission I'm going vegan. Like, everybody else has done it. So this person's done it, that person's done it. They're still here.
Right.
So it's not going to kill you. Right. So let me try that. Right. So
did you run into some of the comeback stories that we're probably talking about and have had on the podcast? Because there's some really extraordinary transformational ones that are way before 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. I've seen all the transformational stories. All of them. Documentaries. I watched. So is anything on nutrition I wanted to know about? If it was a documentary on nutrition, if it was a book on nutrition, if it was, then I went back to school and got certified in holistic nutrition. So my reason, so in the beginning, I didn't know anything about being vegan or plant-based. So, but what I did know is I had a strong why. My why was I wanted to know where heart disease came from. I wanted to know where cancer came from. Right. So the more research I did, it kept saying it's the food,
Right.
it's the food, it's the food. So reasons. So the saying is reasons come first, answers come second. So I had a ton of reasons. Like I said, I'm furious. I'm angry that my
Mhm.
mother passed away from the leading cause of death. And the leading cause of death, you telling me my mother passed away because of hamburgers and hot dogs and neck bones and oxtails and squirrels and all of that jazz. Okay, so my mind just went into rage mode, right? So that is how I lost the 70 pounds in 10 months and reversed all of my health conditions in a matter of less than a year because I was literally that focused.
All right. Well, let's get really specific because
Yeah.
you basically Googled how people die, so how not to die. For you
Which
wanted
is
to
a
do the
good book,
opposite.
by the way.
It's a fantastic book.
Yeah. Dr. Greger, absolutely.
For sure. So you like we know from the book, you lost 70 pounds in 10 months and you no longer pre-diabetic, which is huge. Your total cholesterol drops 100 points. Your heart disease is improving greatly. And those are some wow results from 10 months. So day one, you're like, okay, you've done all this research and you've looked in. Do you go cold tofurkey? Like, what is get specific with people who can do this?
Entire month of December, I just picked out on whatever I wanted to eat. And then on January 1st, in my mind, I said, I'm flipping the switch. So I flipped the switch. So once I cut off, like, that's it. So all plants, everything plants. So I had no idea what plant-based was all about. I had no idea. All I knew was my reasons came first and then my answers came second. So the more that I did it, I started just making simple recipes, fruits, vegetables. I started saying like, oh, eat the rainbow. Let's eat the rainbow. So I started eating the rainbow. Started all these different types of colors. So cut out all the animal products, cut out all the processed food, cut out everything that is detrimental to your health. I call it diesel fuel. So I literally said, I'm cutting out all of the diesel fuel. Diesel fuel makes up 90% of the standard American diet. So I cut out everything and I just went fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and legumes, beans. So I started out making beans. I just started making beans, and more beans. And then once I finished with the beans, then I started discovering Buddha bowls. Like, oh, what are Buddha? Somebody told me, like, my sister told me, like, hey, my husband, he went vegan once before, and he started making these things called Buddha bowls. I'm like, well, what are Buddha bowls and Buddha bowls? I started doing research on those, and I just started every single day. I just kept with it every single day. Like, there's no
Explain what a Buddha bowl is. Dotsie also has bowls that she loves too, that she makes. So explain what you put in yours.
Yeah, so Buddha bowls are Buddha bowl. I put everything under the sun there. So the basic stuff, right? So my leafy greens, I have I might throw some tofu in there, but I'll throw some grains in there, some brown rice, some quinoa. I'll throw some, chop up my bell peppers, some onions, cauliflower, whatever, right? But the main thing about my Buddha bowls is my sauce. Like, I'll make a crazy sauce, so you can make the Buddha bowl, it's fine. So, but how you get it to be delicious is you make a sauce. So I'll make this nice cilantro sauce and I just pour it all over the top. So that was my thing, just make different types of sauces. Yeah. So whatever the Buddha bowl is, make a different type of sauce, and then you can vary the flavor. So you can build from there, right? All different types of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains. Just throw them in one big bowl. So that's what the saying is. How Buddha bowls came about is back in the day when Buddha would just walk through the town. So he walked through the towns with these huge, big bowls, right? And all of the villagers were like, oh, we don't have much to give you. We don't have much to give you, Buddha. So we're just going to throw you all of these different types of foods. So he just had this big basket filled with all these different types of foods, right? And so that is where the big Buddha bowl came about. And so, but basically, there's so many nutrients in there. Anything that you want to put in there, you can put in there. And it's just a big smorgasbord of vegetables and
flavors and
deliciousness and make your taste buds go bananas.
My favorite dressing is like a creamy tahini dressing. And that's where you get your calcium, folks, right? Ounce per ounce. Tahini has the most calcium of any food. So you were talking about beans. Right. And we're all aware on this show what the power of beans and how incredible they are for a microbiota. However, if you went from McDonald's and KFC and Burger King over to beans, most people listening are going, oh my God, my gut. Like that is not, I mean, but you're militant about it. We get that part. You just like did it. But did you have periods of gut distress that you had to figure things out and make adjustments and maybe not do so many beans for a while and do them more steady? Or did your gut just say, this is just accept everything?
So after about 3 weeks, so the first 3 weeks were the roughest. So I'm teaching a class. So I'll be teaching a class and I'm like, students, time to break. Because when you got to go because you're changing up your gut microbe. You're changing your microbes and you're changing your digestion, right? So that went on for
getting
like
a lot more fiber than you were in December when you were eating all the meat and fast food that you wanted. Yeah,
exactly. So it took me about 3 to 4 weeks for my body to say, okay.
Yeah.
So
it was a good problem because you're finally pooping more regularly.
Yeah, it is
I was definitely a super pooper. I'll say that.
Yeah. And most Americans don't know about that at all. Although in countries where they eat a lot of fiber, they can have a bowel movement on demand. Like we can pee in a cup on demand often for the doctor. They can have a bowel movement, which in America is unheard of pretty much because we don't eat enough fiber. But let me ask you, Kelly, where were now I'm laughing because 2021, you become vegan January 1st. That's 2.5 years ago. And you write a book and you change your career. I mean, you're somebody who obviously does things 100% and doesn't get deterred by a little bit of discomfort and, I'm craving my ice cream or whatever it was, my McDonald's. But there are a lot of people who aren't like you and who probably are coming to you for help. Tell us about and if you say, it was easy, I just did it in a day. And, that's not going to be helpful to them. Tell us if there were any challenges and how you overcame them to this huge change that you made to your diet and your lifestyle.
The challenge was I'll tell you this, the real challenge was the first 2 weeks. I remember it was on January 15th. I was just like, when January 15th came, it was just like, I just had this huge craving, just like, I gotta have some meat and I gotta have it now, right? It was just like, it just kept calling my name. I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it, And then eventually I was just like, I went to the store and I just grabbed the sausage and I ate the sausage. This was on January 15th, 2 weeks in, and I ate the sausage. And after that point, it was just like, okay. Now
you got your fix.
So I got my fix.
You got your fix. Okay. What stopped you from needing another fix?
15 days later.
No, it was just like a big, because I know what it is. I know it's diesel fuel. I know it's the reason that my mother is no longer here. I know that is the reason that the number one contributor for people passing away is from eating all of this animal products and processed food. So it was just on that day when I said, you know what, I'm done. But now on my clients on the other end, so in the beginning, I'll put them on a 30-day challenge. So this is how I rectify the issue with my clients, because I tell people, you probably read from my book, that I'm 100% plants all the time. So when my clients come and they're like, it's difficult, I'll put you on a 30-day challenge. So 30 days, you can do anything. 30 days, no animal products, and we're going to cut out all the processed food for 30 days. And that is after the 30 days, then I put you on my 90-10 rule. So I want 90% of your diet to be fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and legumes. And the other 10%, I'm going to let you choose whatever you want. Because a lot of people will say, just like you were saying, I don't want to go 100%. I can't go 100%. 100% is just too hard. It's just like, I have a family events. I have all these different things going on, right? How can I, it's deeply grained in society. Like, how can I stop that? So when I went back to school, and my school said, execute the 90-10 rule. So once I've been executing the 90-10 rule with my clients, they take off like a rocket, because
freedom.
They can still have the choice.
Doesn't it feed off of itself eventually? I mean, I would imagine that most of them after 60 days and 90 days are almost 100%, because the foods that we think we want at the family event or the wedding or something, with such high saturated fat, such high processed sugar, such high salt. It's so super addictive, and you crave what you eat. So if you start putting those things in, that's what you're going to want. And then it's so easy to backslide. That's what I think would be tough to do. I would find it hard to do.
Right.
90-10.
It's a lot hard. It's a lot easier doing it that way than tell somebody to go 100% plants.
Yeah, just because they get stuck here. Right?
Yeah. So I have a lot more success because in the beginning I tried, no, you're doing 100% plants all day, every day. No. I was like super hardcore, like nope. And then that would, after the first 30 days, people will start getting it'll be a lot of pushback because now it's the real grind. Now it's the day after day grind. Now it's the week after week grind. Now it's the month after month grind. Right? To be able to lose all of this weight. I lost the weight so quickly because I was super focused. When I get something in my head, that's it. Like there's no turning back once I decide. But then I realized that I tried that with other people, like, okay, yeah, go super hard, just, be super militant with it. And when I was super militant with it, again, after the first 30 days, people were just like, yeah, it's, the family events and everything, right? It's real life, going out to eat with family, friends, and all that stuff. Can I have a little bit, It's just, it turns after that. So I was like, okay, let me execute this 90-10 rule. And in the 90-10 rule, I have a client now, he's been doing it since last year, and he's lost like 60 pounds, right? All of his numbers have improved. Hadn't seen his cholesterol numbers this low in 20 years.
That's great. In your book, you talk about there are 3 reasons that we gain weight: eating too much of the wrong food, which you talk about earlier, the diesel fuel, quote unquote, that we put in our body; lack of fiber, which we actually also touched on because you talked about how much your bathroom habits changed after you went plant-based; and then eating at the wrong times. Can you elaborate on the third one, eating at the wrong times?
So eating on the wrong time. So eating at the wrong time, it's about your circadian rhythm. So here's the thing here's the question I like to pose back to people. Like, what can you do about the sun?
Nothing.
Sunscreen
on.
That's it. That's the only thing. What can you do about the moon?
Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. Because that is your circadian rhythm. It's a 24-hour period. So circadian rhythm, each living species has its own circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm says, based on the positioning of the sun, based on the positioning of the moon, that is how the cells in your body are going to be instructed, right? So when the sun's coming up in the morning, this is how I tell people. When the sun's coming up in the morning, you're supposed to eat something really, really light because the sun is not up yet, right? So you eat something like, a juice, fruit bowl, something really, really light. Right. But in the middle of the day, when the sun is at its peak, guess what? That is when I grab me a big Buddha bowl, right? Because that is when the sun is at its peak. And then that is when your body is able to handle the most fuel. So that's when you fuel up the most. And then when the sun's coming down, guess what? Your cells automatically start to slow down with nature, with the sun. So when it comes to eating at the wrong time, we're eating diesel fuel, which is 90% of the standard American diet, ultra processed food and animal products. Late at night. If you get yourself in line with your circadian rhythm, that is how I lost the weight so quickly, because I understood that this concept of their circadian rhythm.
Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
So when did you eat? I mean, when do you recommend your folks?
So 7 o'clock. So about 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock is when your pancreas will shut off. Your pancreas says, I don't want any more. I don't want any more glucose. I'm good.
Oh, in the evening.
Yeah, 7 o'clock in the evening. Your body's like, your pancreas is like, I'm good for the day. I don't need to excrete any more insulin. We have poor sleep. We have poor sleep because when your body is supposed to be relaxing and preparing itself because it already has the raw fuel for the day, guess what we're doing? We're still giving it fuel, giving it fuel, giving it fuel, giving it fuel, the wrong fuel, and your body responds in a different way. So it's called.
But even if you give it the right fuel, you wouldn't recommend that people eat past 7.
Yeah,
Is that what
even
you're
if,
saying?
I said this in my book. Yeah, even if you're giving it the right fuel.
Guys have so much, I have noticed, and not to be sexist, but it's just what I've noticed after having, thousands of conversations like you've had. Guys are more resistant to going plant-based. And so you're a guy, you were like the dude's dude. I mean, you were in the military, you were a Navy instructor, like they're looking up to you like, all right, whatever you say, have you had a lot of guys push back? And what was the pushback? And then how did you lovingly or not so lovingly, whatever the tactic is, to, I guess, just, I know we're not supposed to run around trying to convince people, but I was going to use the word, how did you convince them? If they've come to you for help, then they are looking for you to help convince them, right?
If they've come to me for help, then that's a totally different thing. Like, I'm not going to I won't seek them out. They'll see the sign, like if I'm in an event, they're like, oh, you're vegan. I'm not giving up my steak. That's like one of the first things that even before I'm not giving up my steak. Right? No. I barely even said hi to them. They're telling me they're not giving up their steak.
Right.
But so typically my clients will be, hey, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of having this chronic condition, or I'm sick and tired of, they're just like, hey, I'm sick and tired of not being able to tie my shoe. Right.
There you go.
Yeah, I couldn't tie my shoe. Right. Once you get to the point where you've reached a low, a lot of my clients, they've reached a low. Like I don't know what else to do. I've reached a low. I'm like at my wit's end. Like please help me. And they'll jump on board. And those are the clients that have the most success because they're ready to go. And then the instructions that I give them, they follow it to a T, and then the results come, right? Because they follow it to a T. But if I have to convince someone to say, hey, yeah, you're supposed to eat this, and if I get a lot of pushback, then typically they're not going to be a right client for me.
Well, what do you say about protein to like people? Maybe people in your family are looking at you like, wow, Billy's kind of gotten weird. And how's he going to survive? And he looks too thin. That's a thing people like to say, you look too thin. Because as you said, we're so used to being heavier. Everybody is heavier. So what do you say to your family about your health and protein and all those typical questions?
It's the same thing. In the beginning, everybody's going to have their own choice, right? So my family is a little bit different in the sense that, nobody wants to be like me. No, not that they don't want to be like me, but they don't want to be like me in the sense that if it comes to giving up the food that they love, my brother, let me say this, my brother, he started to make some changes. He started to make some changes in his diet. He's seen me like, yeah, he's saying in the beginning, like, yeah, you just kept going on and on and on and on and on and on about it. So now he's starting to make some changes. But there's other family members just like, that's great for you, but that's not for me. Right. So you'll get a lot of that. That's great for you, but that's not for me. And as far as like you're too thin, nobody really says anything that you're too thin because I'm kind of back to my high school weight. I'm toned. I'd like to say I'm in the best shape of my life. So it's not that you look at me and say, hey, you're skinny. Like now I talk to people and they'll say, I can't believe, if I tell them like, yeah, I was obese. They'll be like, what? You were obese? Like, what? I'm like, yeah. And then I show them the picture and they're like, oh my God. It's like, they can't believe it.
Yeah.
Simply because of these plants. So when somebody's asking about protein, like I don't even get into the protein debate with people. I can get into the protein debate, but you probably read my book. I have a topic called did someone say protein? It's kind of like, did someone say protein? Like, oh, yeah, let's tell you about protein, right? So I literally go into the details. Like I go behind the scenes. It's like that topic is not the traditional. Let's talk about protein. How much protein do you need? I'm going to give you the hardcore, like, where does protein come from? And why do people need protein, right? You need protein to grow. Why is it that human beings have the least amount of protein in their milk versus any other species? Out of all the species on the planet, out of all the mammals on the planet, human beings have the least amount of protein in their milk. And
the highest amount of carbohydrate.
So then you start asking questions like, well, why is that? So they find out like, oh yeah, based on, and why is that a tiny mouse has 10 times as much protein in its milk versus that of a human? It's simply because it takes a mouse or a rat 6 months to become a full adult. It takes them 6 months to become a full adult. It takes human beings 18 to 20 years. Your body's not built for like protein.
Yeah.
It's built for carbohydrate. Your brain is made up of straight glucose, right?
And
That's
we
what
don't
it
want to
wants run on.
grow faster than we're supposed to grow. The taller, bigger people have higher death rates than
Right.
smaller people. I don't know why it's frustrating to see so much of milk marketing infiltrating Asia. And I hear time and time again, indigenous Asians are like, yeah, we want to be tall like Americans. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. We have much higher death rates than you do, because of that, and because we've had high fat cow's milk and we've gotten taller faster, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, 95% of the Asian population is lactose intolerant.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm always like, is your stomach okay? The other day I was in the store and this Asian lady, I mean, it was every kind of dairy you can even buy. There was nothing in her cart yet. I'm sure she was still shopping, but it was milk and ice cream and yogurt. And I wanted to say, do you have any, like, does your stomach ever hurt? It's like,
Right.
oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that you're African American, and African Americans have something between 70 and 80% intolerance, right, to dairy.
That's
So a lot of your family might even experience that. And
They do.
Right.
yeah,
They do.
yeah. And
Of course,
also
yeah.
just to say, because cancer was an issue for you, and you really wanted to find out about why your uncle might have had cancer. We get so much cancer, and certainly the high protein and the milk that we drink that's supposed to make a baby cow get to 600 pounds in just a few
Right.
months is not meant for our cells. You talked
Right.
about cells earlier too.
Yeah, build yourselves up.
Dotsie mentioned this about marketing, and you have a funny story about marketing in your book. Your wife and you going to KFC for their sandwich. Tell us about that particular sandwich and what the heck drove you there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thank you for asking. That is a funny story. Somebody said that's a funny story. So KFC, right? KFC, they have this on the commercial. The name of the topic, or the name of the chapter in the book is called "Marketing is One Hell of a Thing." Right. That is when I realized that marketing was one hell of a thing, because they have this sandwich. It's 2 donuts with a chicken in between. And when I first saw the commercial, I'm like, that has to be the worst. That has to be the dumbest idea I've ever heard of for a chicken sandwich. Who would eat two donuts and a piece of chicken together? That's terrible, right? But as the commercial went away, I was like, that's a terrible idea. But then the pleasure receptors in my brain kicked in. I'm like, man, that sounds good. It sounds terrible, but it sounds good at the same time. All right. So the more I'd see this commercial, I'd see it again, and I see it again, and I see it again. And I was like, that's it. We're going to go try this burger. I mean, we'll try this sandwich. So we get in there. I got a slingshot. So we get in the slingshot, and it's like super hot that day. We get in the slingshot. We pull up the KFC.
I don't know what a slingshot is. What is that?
A slingshot is it's kind of half car, half motorcycle.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Two wheels in the front and 1 wheel in the back.
Got it.
But it's in the side by side. So we get in the slingshot. Okay. It's blazing hot outside. And we get there, and we're like, hey, I want that KFC sandwich, the new donut sandwich. They were like, would you want some fries with that? I was like, hell yeah, I want some fries with that. Give me that, right? This was in 2019. So in 2019 is when my weight had spiraled out of control. I'm like, this was when my mother passed away same year. Like I couldn't even buckle my pants, like nothing. I had to wear the stretchy pants. So when I'm eating the sandwich, and I'm just like, oh my, after about like 3, 4, 5 bites, I'm just like, wow. This is so rich. This is so like the perfect combination of fat and sodium and sugar. Fat, sodium, and sugar. They love it. They put it together. And then when I tried it, I was like, this is awful. I knew that my intuition told me it was right. Like, this was a terrible idea. So when I get there, I got through like 3/4 of it. I suffered through it. So when we're getting back, my wife, she didn't really care for it either. So when we're riding back home, we're driving through the town, like, okay, let's go and like hang out and like show off the slingshot, because everybody's like, oh my God, the slingshot. So my wife falls asleep in the passenger side. Keep in mind, the wind is blowing. It's like big sunny day, winds blowing everywhere. She's like knocked out, right? She's knocked out because of all of the calories, all of the everything inside of that sandwich caused us to like, it was terrible, right?
Like a
So
sedative.
that is when I realized that marketing is one hell of a thing.
You know, one thing I learned in Dotsie, you might already know this because Dotsie knows everything about dairy, and because she's the founder of Switch for Good, which works to get dairy out of everywhere. But I learned from your book, Kelly, that some cheese is not vegetarian, that some cheese, because it contains rennet, which I thought cheese contained rennet, I knew that. But what I didn't know is that it's gotten from the stomach of calves. And so to get that, calves need to be killed. So that makes it not vegetarian. Can you talk about that? How did you learn about that? And what cheeses should people who think that they're, if they still want to hold on to some cheese, what are the cheeses they should ditch if they care about calves?
Well, it depends, right? All the cheese, you got to look at the back. The thing I would recommend that you do, it's not necessarily the type of cheese. You got to look at the back of the label. So there's two types of rennets. There's a rennet that is a animal base, which they take it from the fourth stomach of the calf. So right before digestion, right before the baby is weaned off of its mother's milk, and right before digestion, they'll take, and of course they slaughter the baby calf, but they slaughter the baby calf for veal. But at the same time, they're like, well, we slaughtered the baby calf for veal, then we can also use the contents of its stomach to be able to make rennet. So rennet is an enzyme that they use to make the milk coagulate, or make the milk turn hard, to make the milk turn into curds, and then it turns gooey and things of that nature, right? But then there's also a vegetable rennet that comes from a fungus, like a microbial. It's like a microbial, a plant, kind of like a fungus type of
Like a fermented fungus.
Yeah, fermented fungus, exactly. So you have to look in the back of the label to say, is this vegetable rennet, or is this animal-based rennet? And it'll clearly tell you on the back of that label. So basically, it's a terrible process, right? The mother is forcefully impregnated, and then they take her baby away, and they take her baby away and slaughter her baby, and then they take the stomach contents they take the milk from the mother, and then they take the stomach contents from the baby and put it back into the milk. So it's just like it's like, you really think about how that process goes, it's terrible.
Yeah. Dotsie, what you were going to say something about this whole process?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it was back in the day, they didn't even, whether they used, hundreds and thousands of animals for just this, right? Before we had a vegetarian rennet, it wasn't, I don't think they were doubling up using them for veal too. It was just this was the purpose. But I find that today it's hard to find an animal-based cheese that has rennet in it, an animal-based rennet. But if you're like at the cheese shop at the local store, or at a just a cheese shop, the real hard ones that are really expensive, I find that those are still, but yeah, read the labels. That's the best point, right, Kelly? By far, because it will tell you. The cheaper ones don't use the animal anymore. I mean, I've seen, I've been, because it's cheaper to use this fermentation process because they're not doing it to be nice, but they're, it's a lot less expensive and a lot less labor intensive, as you can imagine.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely. So most of the cheese today, they use more of the vegetable rennet, right? Back in the day, they were using all animal rennet, right? So now it's a very small percentage of it. They still do it. It's just in a small percentage of the time now. Yeah,
I read that it was the hard cheeses, like Dotsie said, Parmesan, cheddar, Romana, but then they said mozzarella too, which is not a hard cheese. So I didn't quite understand it. So yeah, folks, for those of you who are vegetarian on your way to being vegan, you can start cutting out the worst, cruelest cheeses.
Look at the back of that label.
Yeah. So what do you say, Kelly, to someone who comes up to you and says they want to go whole food plant-based? What are let's say 2 or 3 tips that you might give them to start the process?
So I tell them to first, it's the 4 Ps. So I got the 4 Ps. So the 4 Ps are my 4 Ps. This is my 4 Ps. To get you going, to get started in the right direction, is first, you want to go to the first P is to plan. So you plan it out. You plan out your meals. Plan out like, hey, what do I want to eat for this week? I want to eat this recipe for this week. I want to eat that recipe for this week. So you plan. The second P is called the plants. So when you go to the grocery store, it's like, hey, where are the plants? Instead of where's the beef, you want to say, where are the plants? So you say, where are the plants? And I want you to get 3 colors. Sorry, that's what the colors are for. You got yellow, purple, red, green, black, all these different orange, all these different types of colors of vegetables. Those colors mean something. So those colors are the different nutrient profiles. So start off with 3, get as many colors as you want, but I want you to go and get a minimum of 3 and start incorporate that into your diet. And number 3 is to prepare. So you bring the plants home and then you prepare them. So you chop them, you dice them, you slice them, right? You put them in a food processor and then you store them. You put them in your storage. And then finally, you want to put them on your plate. So I want 50, that's the final P. So at least 50% of your plate, non-starchy vegetables. And then the other 50% now, 25%, now you can do your starchy vegetables. We're talking your grains, we're talking, your rices and your quinoas and your millets and your potatoes and, all of the higher level stuff. And then finally, I tell people now, like, hey, listen, I'll leave that last 25% up to you. In the beginning, starting out, I'll leave that last 25% up to you. All right.
And then they'll start feeling better and they'll just see how yummy it is and how possible. A lot of people feel like, well, I'm taking out the cheese and the meat. I have no choices. But when you tell them to start going to the grocery store and getting at least 3 colors, they start probably really noticing that a vegetable doesn't have to be just green. And green is great, but there's more to vegetables than peas and spinach and broccoli. There's so many more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And a salad. There's more to it than just a salad. Like, I'm not just going to do what do you eat all day? A salad? Right?
All the time, right?
Yeah, all the time. What do you eat all day? Salad? Like, nah, man, I'm eating
rainbow.
a whole bunch of stuff. Like, look at this big bowl of stuff that I'm eating right here. It's not a salad. Right? I eat salad, don't get me wrong, but that was the 4 Ps. All right. So plan and then plan and then get the plants and then you prepare and then finally you put them on your plate. So I would start off with that. Especially like in the first month with my clients, I focus on their mindset. So their mindset has to be rock solid. Their mindset's not rock solid. It's just like you were saying. I think you said, Alexander.
Well, how do you help people with their mindset? Because that is the hardest part. Do you do what you did, which is read and tell them to read or watch documentaries or certainly read your book or keep in contact with you, or how do they do that?
This is how I do it, right? So I had to ask myself a bunch of questions. The main question that I had to ask myself, so I put people through the same process that I put myself through. The first thing you got to ask yourself is, do I need to have this health condition? Do I need to have diabetes? Do I need to have heart disease? Do I need to have this rheumatoid arthritis? Do I need to have, IBS, right? And if the answer is no, then it's time to change it. I have them write down 5 reasons. Give me 5 reasons as to why you deserve better health. 5 reasons as to why you deserve better health. Then write down reasons as to why you'll never give up. 5 reasons why you deserve better health. And then give me reasons as to why you'll never give up. Because we'll always come back to this. We'll always come back. So if people start giving me excuses, like, oh, I got an excuse for this or excuse for that, right? You can give me 1,000 excuses, but never a good reason. 1,000 excuses for why you're failing on why you decided to go back to eat this or eat that. You can give me 1,000 excuses, but give me one good reason. I started changing my self-talk. So I teach people to start changing their self-talk, and there's a formula. There's a formula for failure. And that formula is a few errors in judgment repeated every day. A few errors in judgment. This is the formula for failure. A few errors in judgment repeated every single day. Right? You grab the Snicker bar instead of the apple a day. You heard the apple a day, so an apple a day keeps the doctor away. You're like, you know what? I have an error in judgment, so I'm gonna grab the Snicker bar a day, right? You grab the Snicker bar a day, every day, repeatedly. Of course, Snicker bar could be a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm just saying a Snicker bar, but that's all the diesel fuel that I talked about. Then there's another formula. The formula for disasters is I could transform my health, right? I could start getting into shape. I should start getting into shape, right? But I don't. I should, but I don't get into shape. But what's worse than that is I won't. I could, I should, you know what? I won't do it. That just means that you're stubborn, right? So I had to start breaking down these barriers, right? And then I giving them the formula for success. Instead of I could, should, don't, and won't, it say I could, should, and I will. I could get into shape. I should get into shape. I will get into shape, right? I could, I should, I will, right? So, and then another part of the formula for success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Remember I said the formula for failure is a few errors in judgment repeated every day, but the formula for success is a few simple disciplines practiced every single day. What is discipline? Discipline means doing the necessary things to achieve a desired result. Doing the necessary, even though you may not feel like it. I may not feel like doing this, or I may not feel like getting out. There was days when I, doing my transformation that, I didn't feel like getting up and working out, but discipline took over, right? Discipline is when your distractions no longer distract you, right? So I start, and then I teach, and finally, inside of my program, once you get inside, is I say, hey, welcome to the ant colony. So the ant is the most successful species on this planet, the ant. So ants were around when dinosaurs were around. They were around when dinosaurs were around, and 65 million years ago, that the dinosaurs went extinct. You see any dinosaurs around here?
No, I have ants in my kitchen right now. I've been switching them out.
Yeah, you got ants in your kitchen. You got ants in your kitchen, right? So they've outlived the dinosaurs. These things are so successful. So if you follow the ant philosophy, we all should adapt the philosophy of an ant, because it's all about goal setting. Ants are important for two reasons. A, they always know where they want to go, and B, they always plan for the winter. So they always want to know, they always have a goal in mind, and they'll stop at nothing. They'll never, ever, ever, ever quit, give up, ever. I mean, ever. Like they'll even sacrifice their life. So if you put a pebble in front of an ant, if he's trying to get somewhere, ants or she's, if you put a pebble or rock in front of an ant and they're trying to get somewhere, they're going to try to go to the left. If they can't go to the left, then guess what? They'll try to go to the right. They can't go to the right. Guess what they'll try to do? They'll try to go over the top. Even if they can't go over the top, they'll try to budge the pebble. Get this pebble out of the way. And even if they can't budge the pebble, they'll recruit some other ants, like, hey, ants, come help me out. Let's move this rock out of the way so we can get to our goal, right? And even if that doesn't work, they'll try to dig a hole underneath. And even if that doesn't work, they will literally try to gnaw their way through that rock to get to the other side, to get to their goal. Either they'll gnaw their way through or they'll die trying. Gnaw their way through or they'll die trying. So that is the attitude, that is the philosophy that you must adapt. I started studying these ants. So I was looking at my Bible one day and it says, hey, sluggard, go seek out, hey, sluggard, thou should go seek out the ways of the ant and study her ways and be wise. So I'm like, what does that mean?
That's in the Bible?
Proverbs. It's in the Bible, yeah. Proverbs 6 verses 6 through 8. Well, It starts in verse 6. It says, hey, sluggard, go seek out the ways of the ant and study her ways and be wise. So I started saying, like, how can an ant be wise? So the more and more research, like I'm telling you, I'm going crazy with it. So that's how the name One Determined Vegan came up. I started studying with these ants, and these ants are so determined. So I became super determined. So One Determined Vegan is where it came about.
Awesome. And that's where we can find you, right? OneDeterminedVegan.com.
OneDeterminedVegan.com. Yeah.
And where can we buy your book and learn more about you?
You can buy my book on Amazon. So it's an Amazon bestseller. People want to know what's going on with their health. So you can find me on Amazon. You can go to OneDeterminedVegan.com. You can also find me on Instagram as well. It's _determined_vegan. So everything is One Determined Vegan. Facebook, One Determined Vegan. So, and then
easy peasy.
All about developing the philosophy of an ant.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Kelly. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I love being here.
And I know your mom is looking down. She's proud of you.
Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review and zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.